Okay, here we are, corner of 7th and Hill, and where this house stands, there used to be what looks like an older house right in between the edge of the house and the vacant lot. And this vacant lot all the way up here to the alley was all full of houses on the 85 map, and a couple of houses somewhere in the middle here on the 54 map. And I've dug at least 6, maybe 7, 8 privy holes back up in this area. And now I've got permission to dig behind this house. And I know I found a hole last year back here probing, but was waiting for permission. Now that I got it, I can't find where I probed the hole. Go figure. So this will be interesting. Or not. Okay, here we are behind the house. And I do believe I found where I probed before. It's a bit deeper. At least 4 foot through a clay cap, which I don't remember. And some surface, near to the surface ash that's fairly new, which we ignore. And we've been at it now for about 20 minutes. And it's slow going. Okay, only about 1.5 feet deep. And already we're getting some fragments of dull parts here. Old dull parts, I might add. One of them, I had a hand over here. Oh, here it is. Hard to tell what it was. There it is. There's the fingers, the fingies, and the thumb. It's an old one. Okay, after about 2 hours of digging, about the last 15-20 minutes I've spent in this little corner, and I've pulled out about 6 Duffy malts, all of them early machine made, not too thrilling, but I dug up a couple of Chamberlain's pain balm, which I've never dug before, and a couple of the common colic, cholera, and diarrhea remedies, and a DeLacy hair tonic, the amber one there. That's a St. Louis bottle, supposedly. And the first one to come out of the hole was this one with a hole. Dr. Miles Restorative Tonic. I'm familiar with the nervine, but not the tonic. And this is a pre-machine variation. I'm not familiar with that one. I don't think I've ever seen one. So hopefully, as with the others, there may be more than one. Who knows? Okay, here we are, about the 5-foot level, and I think I broke my old record with digging these plain salve jars, it looks like. I must have dug at least 30 or 40 of them. Every time I pull up a rare Chamberlain's diarrhea remedy, I pull up 2 or 3 of these. Must have been good. Well, these were the finds that remain in my collection from what I call the Duffy and Diarrhea hole. um, Mainly because I dug up 33 Chamberlain's colic, cholera, and diarrhea remedy bottles. Each and every one of them were the 25-cent small size, except for one. They finally broke down and bought a 50-cent size bottle. You would think 33 bottles of this stuff, you would think they would have bought a $1 large size or whatever once. The other most common bottle, the Duffys, were all machine made. Not a single one of them was tooled. And I dug up, what the heck was it, 18 of them, I believe I counted. 18 Duffys. Hence Duffys and Diarrhea. And then countless of these, what I used to think were salve jars, apparently were Vaseline for brothels. I'll let your imagination just go with that one for now. I used to think they were some sort of a, I don't know, something very addictive. But it was for something very addictive, I guess. I don't know. A smattering of other interesting odds and ends, but they weren't bottles. Bromo seltzers, Rubifoam, shoe polish, Whitmore shoe polish. The coolest shoe polish was a gilt edge dressing, and I thought I still had it, but apparently I sold it off when I trimmed out my collection year before last. The Kilmers, of course, I'd always rather dig a large size, but you know, these are cool too. Yeah, I mean, it's a Kilmer's. That's about all I can say about it. It's not machine made. Matter of fact, I think the Duffys were the only machine made bottles. There might have been a Listerine or two in there. That was the other commoner. Oddly enough, I don't recall digging a single Castoria bottle. And after 33 Chamberlain's diarrhea remedies, I actually discovered there were a diversity. The biggest noticeable difference was cholera was missing on some of them. It was like colic and diarrhea remedy. And on some of the others, it was listed as Des Moines, Iowa, but some of them had USA on it. I think that's the most common variant. And then a few of them didn't have USA embossed in the glass, which kind of made me wonder, you know, what that was about. But then one of the weirdest things I've ever dug up were these two little vials. I called them vials, but they came out of the ground as you see them. I mean, there was no attachments, no wires, no weirdness of them coming out except these bases. This one, I think the panel actually broke off. A teeny tiny hole down there. Oh boy, let's keep it in focus, Jack. And this one, as you can see, is empty of any weirdnesses. But this one, actually, come on, let's not roll away. I thought there were some sort of burnt out electrical components, but as you can see, this one in the neck almost looks like a bird. You can see the head and the beak and the wings tucked back. I don't know if it just happened to end up that way. And then I got this other chunk of it back in here. And when you roll it around or rattle it, almost sounds like glass on glass. And I got the idea that it might have been some sort of a weird early Christmas tree light. Both of the bases had this little tip on the end, almost like those early light bulbs with those tips that would stick out like that. And what a weird little thing. I have no idea. If anybody out there has any better idea than a early Christmas tree light, because this dump was clearly, right at the early machine-made age. I'm sure Duffys were making machine-made bottles by 1910, but not everybody else. So, I don't know. Just kind of it was a fun dig, but it was strange, I did dig up a few Chamberlain's pain balm bottles that I mentioned in the video. I'd never dug before, but no big whoop-whoops. Everything was common as common. But oddly enough, too, there were way more embossed bottles than unembossed bottles, and it's usually the other way around. So that's what kind of made it fun. You never knew what was going to crop up next. So anyway, on to the next one. Well, we're behind the house that was built, what appears to be the original courthouse foundation for Hannibal, which was built between 1869 and 1885 at some point. Because in 1869 it was still the First Presbyterian Church building, labeled as the courthouse. And then by 1885 it was a obviously different looking structure on the map. And by 1901 this house was built. And between 1899 map where the courthouse still stood and the 1906 map where this current house stands has the same dimensions. And that limestone looks old enough to be old. Hard to tell. Oddly enough, where the map showed there should be a privy, there was nothing that I could detect. Over here where my flag is, flapping in the breeze. And way over here, where the map shows nothing, where my probe is sticking out of the ground here, there appears to be a privy. I couldn't detect any glass, but that's what the shovels are for. So we will find out. Well, after much grumbling and cursing of the bottle goddess, at the 8 foot level, I dug up this bad boy. A large size L. Orensky from Hannibal Mow. Dug up 3 smaller ones earlier, a couple of months ago. This is a nice large size and it looks to be perfect. Yay, I'm so happy. First embossed bottle out of the hole. Matter of fact, only the 4th unbroken bottle out of the hole. But this one's an early one. Dates into the 70s. So I think we're in the old courthouse privy. Yeehaw! And there's one right next door to this one. Right on the other side of that cement thing. Oh boy, now I'm excited. After about 2 hours of digging, it is clear this is not a brick liner twin to what I dug yesterday. Even though Now there's that big bad boy, just came out. I've hit a thick clay layer, and then apparently it gets a little softer underneath. But so far, I have two itty bitty pieces of glass to show for it, neither of which are telling me much about age. So I'm hoping, well, it's a stone liner for one, kind of ovoid shape. I expect it'll round out a little more as I get deeper. I'm only about 3 or 4 foot deep now, but it is an odd shape. I'm hoping it's a privy and not a cistern, because the drainage for the roof runoff ran right in here. You can see the little hole right there. I don't know if that was original for the house or what the story was. But we'll find out. Can't wait for the sun to go behind the house so I get some shade. It's getting brutal. Well, okay, these are the only survivors from the courthouse dig, and I call it the courthouse dig because that's what it was before it became a private residence. But originally it was the site of the first, let me get this right, first Presbyterian church, I believe, which was built in 1846 or 7, mid-40s, mid to late 40s. And by 1869, they had built a newer church a few blocks away. And it became I believe, the second courthouse. And near as I can tell from the Sanborn maps and the 1869 map, by 1869, it was a courthouse, but on the 69 map, it was still listed as a church. And what I believe is that they probably partitioned out the church itself for the chambers and whatever, or they may have used what was there. But near as I can tell, that limestone foundation is original to the church today. It does appear as though nothing has changed from the foundation part of the building. Even though today, like 1906, I think it was, Sanborn map shows there was a brick duplex there, which is still standing today. And the current owner, when I dug this place, was this little old lady, retired school teacher, I think, tough as nails. One of the few times I was told no, I can't dig for bottles, and so I just went, oh, okay. And I went hunting next door, which was a vacant lot that some friends of mine owned and gave me permission. And a couple of weeks after I had tried to get permission from her, I was over next door poking around, and she came over to the fence and leaned over and said, hey, if you're still interested in digging in my yard, I'll be leaving on vacation the next day here. And she said, as long as I'm gone on vacation, you're more than welcome to dig back here. I'm just afraid my little dogs will fall in the hole. And she had these chihuahuas. which was really a surprise. I was just like, oh, okay, great. So I made sure I was there right after she left. And she was only gone for 2 days, but I gave it hell for 2 days. um, and what was interesting was I probed out 2 holes right close to the current building, and one of them um, probed out as a stone liner, and the other one was brick. And at that time, lately, I had been digging older brick privies than stone liners, so I went for the brick. And it turns out the brick privy was the one to the outhouse, and it was about 3 steps off of the back. And my guess was that the judge probably didn't look too dignified racing all the way back to the alley to use the outhouse. Be that as it may, this brick privy was about 15, maybe 17 feet deep. I kind of lost track of that, but what was really interesting was it was 2 feet by 2 feet square. I mean, I could barely squeeze in there. And with my little 2.5 foot shovel, I had trouble dumping dirt in my bucket. I had to angle dump, which was, if you've ever had to do that, it's a real chore. And then climb out and pull out the bucket, and I think my arms looked like Popeye at the end of that summer. But anyway, in the stills you can see pretty much what came out of there, some 1870s flasks. These 2 guys, the amber guy right here, I've talked about the L. Orinsky Pharmacy in Hannibal. And this was a solid 1870s bottle. And the first several that I dug up were amber. I mean, before I dug up a clear one, I only thought they came in amber. So you can imagine my surprise and excitement when I actually dug a clear one. Usually it's the other way around. And this was the biggest one up to that point that I had dug up. I now have the next size larger in amber and clear. And then who gets excited by amber Hosteters from the post Civil War period? But this one's really funky and crude. It's got some serious gerb in the neck and seam line, and on the base. What was this one? William McCully. I think this is the only Hosteters I've dug up with a William McCully glass mark on the base. So, that's a nice crude one, probably early 70s. Fairly crude. So I'm fond these days of saying if I can only dig one good bottle out of the hole, it's worthwhile. It makes my day. And this nice large size at the time Orinsky bottle was the one. So there you have it, a 2 by 2 foot brick liner. Oh, the other part was the stone liner appears to be the older hole. I gave it hell for about a half a day. That's all I had left before I knew she was going to be back in town. And I think I only got down about 3 or 4 feet, probed, never hit any glass. But in this town, that doesn't mean a whole lot. Usually, if you're going to find something in a hole that old, it's maybe, a half a dozen or less bottles, and they can be in various stages of wholeness and likely at the very, very bottom. But being a church privy, all I could think of was holy water bottles and, maybe an ink bottle or something. People didn't go to church to throw their trash down the outhouse, But then again, I've heard funny stories where the janitor was an alcoholic or something and couldn't get through a Sunday without being back in the outhouse having a nip or six, you know. So anyway, there you have it. A fun little dig, although it was a bit cramped. Good thing I'm not claustrophobic, right?